So my mentees are probably gonna get a bit annoyed at me for sharing my high ticket sales framework because, obviously they paid for it. But, hey ho. So here's the framework that I use to close high ticket deals for my agency. And to date, I believe I've closed just over $200,000 in lifetime cash collected for my agency. And no doubt this year it will be much, much higher than that. So let's get into it. You see, when it comes to sales, most people kind of picture this fast-talking, Wolf of Wall Street, boiler room guy.
Me that if I put you in at Union Carbide at 7, it took you out at 32.
Texas Instruments at 11, and took you out at 47.
U.S. Steel at 16.
And that's the old way, and it really just doesn't work, especially when it comes to selling to sophisticated buyers, in high ticket sales, right? How you actually want to conduct high ticket sales calls, in my opinion, is just by having a conversation and focusing on these 3 questions. Number 1, where are they at currently? Number 2, where are they trying to get to? And lastly, how you can actually help them. And that's all. And how you go about getting a really good understanding of where they're at, where they need to be, and how they want to get there is literally just by actively listening to them and asking relevant questions to dig deeper where you need to. And to be honest, if it's genuinely not a good fit at the end, there's nothing you could say, do, or anyone for that matter, to get them to sign up with you short of just lying, straight face lying to them, right? So I'm gonna hop over to a Loom screen share. I'm gonna go over a very basic sales framework that I've been using for the kind of past 6 to 8 months and show you how I close these high ticket deals. So this is the script or framework that I use to close all of my meetings. It's slightly more simplified because I don't want to overwhelm you guys, but this is where you want to be starting when it comes to building your own style of selling. So obviously when you first jump on the call, just do a bit of a quick intro, build a bit of rapport, right? I'm not going to tell you how to do that because I'm hoping you guys have a decent level of emotional intelligence and you're able to have a conversation with someone. But yeah, let's jump into the actual kind of strategy of things, right? So before you start the call, you want to be pre-framing the call and setting the agenda. So to do this, you want to basically just come across genuine, right? So for example, when I conduct my demo calls, when it comes to email marketing, it's the first 15 minutes is actually not designed for me to sell them my service because it's we're at a point where we could be quite selective with who I work with, and generally speaking, it just makes financial sense as well. If I sign, 3 clients I can keep on for 9 months, it definitely beats trying to sign 5 who, retention culture might not be a good fit. So yeah, this is something I like to say when I first jump on these calls. It would be something along the lines of hey, these calls are just literally to understand where you're at currently, where you want to go, identify the roadblocks, and figure out if I can actually help you solve those. And if I can, I'll show you how we do that. And yeah, this call is not about decision making. Sounds good? So this is how I would conduct a demo call. However, on the second call, because I do a 2-call close, I would be much more hard salesy, if that makes sense. Not hard salesy in the sense fast talking molester character that I highlighted earlier, but more so just, hey, this call is about decision making. I want you to make a decision here. When it comes to the next stage, after you pre-frame the call, it's kind of the digging phase, right? Here you are assessing their current state of being, and you're really trying to figure out why they got on that call first of all and what actually are the pain points. Because for a business owner to get on a call with you, they must want something, right? You need to figure out what the want is. A few questions I really like asking is, for example, why are you on this call with me, right? What's your goals with email marketing, Facebook, Google ads? How much are you making currently? All these questions are super, super important. And the key thing here is, right, you need to dig past the surface level stuff. And you want to find what are those root causes for their pain. So how you do that is by following up your initial questions, for example, hey, why are you on this call? With, oh, maybe they said something that was quite interesting and you want to dig a bit deeper at that. You can ask something oh, what do you mean by that? Tell me more about this. How has this problem come about? Real basic stuff. It's literally a conversation if you've noticed the general theme here, right? And then you want to talk about kind of their goals and visions. So ask questions like, where do you actually want to get to? Revenue goals, for example, for this year. Are you hitting your KPIs currently? If not, like, why not, right? And if you're a fairly established agency, I want you to actually bust out your case studies here, right? If, for example, I jump on a call with like a supplements brand, I have case studies to back that up. I can be like, hey, look, this is what we actually did for this client, and this is what they're enjoying now, right? So case studies, if relevant to you, and you can talk about where do you want revenues to look like in this Q4 or maybe 12 months time, whatever. Now, the important thing here that I haven't actually written down in the script is that it's really important that you're asking and focusing on asking open-end questions first of all. So questions that can't really just be replied with a yes or no answer. Are you or do you questions, generally speaking, are close-ended, whereas what, why, and how questions are open-ended. And in my opinion, it's better to ask what and how questions as opposed to why questions, especially when you're digging at the pain points. Now, there are, times when you could use why questions very tactfully for emphasis, but generally speaking, I stick to what and how questions. And if you want to know why, there's a book I highly recommend you check out, and it's called Never Split the Difference. Anyways, now, after each stage, you always want to be recapping to confirm that you understand what they've said. The powerful thing about recapping and summarizing everything is that it shows that, number one, you're listening, and it builds trust with the person. Because it shows that, you understand exactly where they're at, and describing the problems back to them is super, super powerful when it comes to building trust and building rapport with the clients. Now, next is you want to be going over their roadblocks. So that would be, asking questions like, hey, what's actually stopping you from getting there right now? Questions like these are super powerful, and you really do need to put your listening hat on and really actively listen to what your clients are saying. Right. And you can ask other questions like, how high is your priority to solve this? How long has this been going out for, to kind of draw out the pain a bit more. But what you really want to be focusing on here is just like the roadblocks, like what's preventing them from getting from point A to point B in terms of like what can't they actually solve themselves. So for example, with ads, a lot of the time it's like expertise, they don't have the expertise to do it. Or it could be things like they simply don't have the time, like they're managing so many different roles within their business, they simply don't have the time and dedication needed to really run ads effectively. Then you can ask about what's this in terms of your priorities. The reason why I like this question is because it gives you an idea of like the heat of the customer. Just like traffic, where there's like cold traffic, warm traffic, bottom of funnel, like hot traffic. You want to understand like how easily are they going to pull the trigger on you. If it's like a 10 out of 10 like top of the priority list, most of the time you're going to be able to close that sale if it's a good fit, right? But if it's like super low down on the priority, sometimes what I do is I just give a bit of value and then cut the call short. Because if it's genuinely not a good fit, there's absolutely nothing you could do or say to make them like be sold on your service, short of bold-faced lying to their face, right? So once you understand what their roadblocks are and what's kind of like the root causes of their problems, you want to again just recap everything to show that you're listening and that you really understand and sympathize with the prospect. Next is you want to ask kind of like what I call discovery questions. So the goal of these questions is just to identify a few of their biggest problems that's kind of holding them back from achieving their goals. So you can do this by asking a systematic framework of like questions, but the key thing here is, right, you can't just tell them, hey, 1, 2, 3, these are your problems, right? Because then they wouldn't really feel listened to. And generally speaking, like if I get on a sales call and they just told the sales rep just told me like, hey, these are the 3 problems, I'd automatically get defensive. And this is not what you want, because this actually is like a disservice to the prospect, because you're not helping them in any way, right? So the key thing is you need to ask them questions to make them realize what's holding them back themselves and what the problems are themselves, right? You can't just flat out tell them. So what you could do, some of the questions I really like is like, hey, tell me some of the things that your competitors are doing that's really skyrocketing their growth And what do you think that they are doing differently from you? And this essentially takes the blame from the founders or the prospects or whatever. And then just, this is like a very genuine question. And this is a perfect distinction between like a what and a why question, right? Because what do you think they are doing differently isn't very, it's like, it's very conversational, right? It's very casual. Whereas if you reposition the question as, oh, why do you think they're doing better than you? It comes across a lot more accusatory. So this is like a perfect example of why I choose to use what and how questions more often than why questions. So this is a question I use specifically for email marketing, but I mean, you can kind of do it with Facebook ads as well, because obviously there's retargeting, right? But generally speaking, you want to highlight a few of the issues that you spotted, and make sure you keep them high impact. You don't need to always have 3 biggest problems. Like, you could just have 1, right? But generally speaking, you don't want to cover more than 3. So the reason why you don't want to do that is because you don't want to overwhelm the prospect. You don't want to make them feel like, hey, this is like a massive task, right? Because like a massive undertaking, because at the end of the day, you're selling a done for you service. So you're trying to make the experience as stress-free for your client as possible, right? So yeah, highlight the problems, problem, question, solution, and then it's time to do the close. So for the close, if they are a good fit, explain to them your solution, but focus on more of like the desired outcome as opposed to the too technical know-hows. Because what I used to do in my sales calls last year was I used to just have a conversation between experts, right? And what that allowed me to do is I was able to kind of like flex my knowledge, but I actually, looking back, I probably let a few sales go as a result, simply because when you actually give the person like too much of the how to do things, it gives them like this false sense of like progression, right? Like, I'm moving forward because I've acquired new knowledge. And this doesn't help them, because guess what? As soon as they get off the call, they're gonna forget everything that they've learned and they're not gonna implement anything. How can you actually benefit the prospect the most, right? And that's by focusing on getting them to the desired outcome, because you're selling a done for you service. So at the end of the day, if they choose to sign up with you, you're going to get them there yourself. You're going to put in the work, and everything is very controlled by you. So just explain them the solution. Don't go into too much detail. Make it sound simple and easy to avoid overwhelming them, and to make sure that they actually understand your solution, right? And then, if at the end you want to just be like something along the lines, you can rephrase this to whatever style you want, by the way. You just ask, hey, are you following me? Does this all make sense to you? Would you like to know the price of this solution? And then as soon as they say yes, all right, perfect. So this investment is X price, and then just stay silent. And then later on, you can kind of start objection handling if there are objections. So yeah, enjoy your sales. And if you want a PDF version of this framework, be sure to join the Facebook group down below. I give one-on-one support pretty much on a daily basis there. So yeah, I'll see you in the next one.